Continuing from last chapter, Lin Dong, using the spirit of the ancient sky crocodile, easily defeated multiple strong opponents, then once again overcame his enemy Lin Langtian, but was evaded by him once more. As Lin Langtian fled, the tense atmosphere that had gripped the ancient plaza slowly began to dissipate. Everyone let out a collective sigh of relief, and when they once again turned their gaze to the figure hovering in midair, their eyes were filled with deep fear. They were well aware that today's events, once spread, would make Lin Langtian's name resound throughout the entire northwestern region, and possibly even earn him recognition in this vast ancient battleground. Faced with the many fearful gazes, Lin Dong's eyes flickered slightly, but he maintained a calm expression as he descended from the sky. With a flick of his sleeve, the spirit of the ancient sky crocodile, which had dominated the skies, swiftly faded and turned into a crimson light, retreating back into the heavenly crocodile bone spear. Summoning the sky crocodile spirit had consumed the last two strands of ancient bloodline power in Lin Dong's possession. If he couldn't acquire more in the future, it would be difficult to summon the spirit again. Even though he had lost those precious bloodlines, the intimidation he had caused was more than worth it. Judging by the way the surrounding people were looking at him, it was clear that none would dare to provoke Lin Dong again. Moreover, Lin Dong had gravely injured his formidable enemy, Lin Langtian, leaving his fate uncertain. By Lin Dong's estimation, there was an 80% chance that his attack had killed him. He couldn't imagine how anyone, after having their minds so severely corrupted, could be saved. Even that mysterious essence spirit wouldn't be able to restore him. "Big brother, are you all right?" Little Yin hurried over at that moment, his eyes filled with concern as he looked at Lin Dong, whose face was slightly flushed. Lin Dong rubbed his chest, where the lingering pain from Lin Langtian's punch was still present. Internally, his body wasn't calm either. There were signs of injury, but he had forcefully suppressed them. Despite establishing dominance with the previous battle, there was no guarantee that some people, driven mad by the allure of the 4 grand profound sex legacies, wouldn't try something foolish again. Little Yin, knowing Lin Dong well, immediately tightened his grip on the iron rod in his massive hands and took a step forward, positioning himself like a tower next to Lin Dong. His fierce gaze swept the surroundings, flashing with a hint of menace. The plaza, following the conclusion of the fierce battle, fell into an eerie silence, as if the crowd was still processing what had just transpired. "Hee, Lin Dong, you truly hid your abilities well. Once word of this battle spreads, you may even qualify for the Nirvana rankings." It was Liu Bai, who had been a mere spectator from the beginning, who first broke the silence with a slight smile. "A mere stroke of luck," Lin Dong replied modestly, though he was mindful of Liu Bai, one of the most mysterious figures among the 4 overlords of the northwestern region. Through his spiritual energy senses, Lin Dong could tell that Liu Bai's strength surpassed even that of Tianjian and the others. A figure of such caliber was not one to be easily offended. While Liu Bai hadn't helped during the fight, Lin Dong didn't hold any grudges. They weren't close, and the fact that Liu Bai hadn't taken advantage of the situation to attack was, in a way, a form of aid. Had Liu Bai and the others attacked, Lin Dong's many trump cards would still likely have led to a humiliating retreat. He was confident, but not arrogant. Facing Tianjian and 3 others alone had already pushed him to his limits. In this world, only the victor matters. Luck has no place here. Yen San, who had been silent until now, smiled faintly as he fixed his gaze on Lin Dong. "It seems I underestimated you. If this weren't the wrong place, I might have been tempted to challenge you myself. The Hell King Hand, Yen San, is quite the name in this ancient battleground. But if you were to fight Lin Dong, the outcome might not be so clear-cut," Liu Bai said with a smile. Yen San's lips twitched but offered no rebuttal. "Hell King Hand, Yen San?" Lin Dong mused. It seemed Yen San was indeed no simple character, though Lin Dong didn't have as much information on him as Liu Bai did. "What puzzles me is why someone like you, usually lurking in the northeastern region, would come to our northwestern territory. The ancient secret repository here is impressive, but I've heard there's an equally formidable treasure in the northeastern region," Liu Bai said, his tone lighthearted. "The treasure in the northeastern region has already caught the eye of a super dynasty. Snatching it won't be easy. In comparison, the northwestern region is the weakest of the areas, so it's more convenient for me to be here, Yin San replied indifferently. Listening to their conversation, Lin Dong began to piece together a clearer picture of the ancient battleground's outer regions. It seemed the land was filled with countless treasures, and even something as powerful as the ancient secret repository wasn't unique. With only 6 months left before the 100 Dynasty War, any strong warrior hoping to stand out would need to seize as many legacies as possible and refine them to fully master their power. Thus, the entire ancient battleground had likely plunged into a frenzy of treasure hunting. Even the super dynasties, with their immense resources, refused to be left behind. Battles as fierce as the one over the ancient secret repository were undoubtedly breaking out in many other corners of the battleground. Now, nearly everyone was doing everything in their power to strengthen themselves because the upcoming 100 Dynasty War would be the true gathering of elites. To stand out among the countless geniuses and catch the attention of the super sects was no easy feat. Liu Bai smiled, saying no more, and turned his gaze toward the 4 ancient doors in the plaza. His eyes gradually lit up with a fiery glint. Since the battle has concluded, let's move on to the most important part. Liu Bai extended his hand, and an ancient secret key appeared in his palm. Rays of light emanated from the key. As the light radiated from the key, the unmoving ancient bronze door, despite all previous efforts to open it, began to gleam with a faint glow. Screech. The key floated gently out of Liu Bai's hand, and the light intensified, eventually forming a mystical rune. The rune shone down on the tightly sealed bronze door. Buzz. Under the rune's glow, the bronze door, which had been shut for countless years, slowly creaked open, revealing a narrow gap, all under the heated gazes of those present. Hee, Lin Dong, it seems my key is the one for this bronze door. We'll be heading in first. If we meet again, we should gather and talk. Liu Bai's eyes were filled with fervor as he looked at the slightly opened bronze door. With a wave of his hand, the ancient secret key emitted a circle of light that enveloped his group. With a whoosh, they shot through the gap in the door. Creak. Once Liu Bai's group had entered, the gap in the bronze door sealed shut again, disappointing many of the onlookers. Let's move as well. Seeing Liu Bai's group successfully enter the bronze door to claim their inheritance, Lin Dong couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. He turned and smiled at Little Yin. Imagim, Little Yin nodded. The two of them took out their ancient secret keys simultaneously, and soon, 2 more bronze doors began to emit a strange glow, showing faint signs of opening. At the same time, Yin Sen also produced his key, and it responded to the final bronze door. Around the plaza, the crowd's gazes were filled with greed as they watched. Some even began to breathe heavily, clearly torn between their avarice and reason. Lin Dong paid no attention to the greedy stares from those around him. His focus was entirely on the bronze door before him, where the light from his key interwove with that of the door. He could feel an ancient resonance emanating from within, subtly linking itself to his body. My inheritance. Lin Dong murmured softly to himself. The ancient secret key in his hand formed a rune, which imprinted itself onto the bronze door. Finally, the long-sealed door began to slowly open. Creak. At the same time, the 2 bronze doors in front of Little Yin and Yin San also began to open, releasing an ancient aura into the air. Be careful, Little Yin. A glowing ring of light enveloped Lin Dong's body as he felt a force of attraction pulling him gently toward the bronze door. He turned his head and warned Little Yin in a serious tone. The two would be separated once they entered, and no one knew what they would face within the inheritance. Lin Dong had given Little Yin one of the ancient secret keys, offering him a great opportunity, but whether Little Yin could seize it would depend on his own abilities. Got it. Little Yin nodded heavily. He knew the value of the ancient secret key. After all, they had fought life and death battles just to keep it safe. Swoosh. The bodies of Lin Dong and the other 2 began to rise, enveloped by the glowing ring of light, as they drifted toward the opened bronze doors. However, just as they were moving, several bloodshot figures suddenly shot out from the surrounding crowd. Yet, instead of attacking, they aimed directly for the open bronze doors, unable to suppress the greed burning in their hearts. It seemed there were still many who couldn't resist the temptation. Bang! Bang! Lin Dong and the others watched calmly as these figures rushed ahead, only to see them explode into a bloody mist just before they could enter the doors. Blood splattered across the plaza, the thick scent of it hanging in the air. Those who had been toying with the idea of making a move turned pale as their hopes crumbled in the face of this grim warning. Under the now disappointed and dimming gazes of the crowd, Lin Dong and his companions finally entered the ancient bronze doors. The creaking sound echoed as the doors slowly closed behind them, as firmly sealed as they had been for countless years. As Lin Dong stepped through the bronze doors, his surroundings were suddenly engulfed in darkness. Even his senses were completely cut off, and the powerful spiritual energy that usually surged around him was forcibly compressed back into his body. The sudden loss of perception startled Lin Dong for a moment, but he quickly composed himself, calming his mind. Not long after he relaxed, the darkness began to fade, and slivers of light pierced through, shining down on him once again. Lin Dong squinted slightly, adjusting to the brightness before slowly opening his eyes. What met his gaze was an enormous, towering gate. Standing before it, Lin Dong felt as small as an ant. He looked up, and the sheer magnitude of the gate made his heart tremble with awe. The massive gate was a pale, greenish hue, and though it appeared slightly open, everything beyond it was shrouded in a mysterious fog. It was impossible to make out what lay behind, heightening the sense of danger and intrigue. Lin Dong grew more cautious as his heart gradually settled. So, this is the land of the four grand profound sects legacy, Lin Dong muttered to himself, his earlier shock slowly fading as he stared at the open gate. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As Lin Dong murmured, beams of azure light began to gather on the giant gate, and faintly, ancient characters emerged, brimming with history and possessing an irresistible allure. Four symbols profound sect, Azure Dragon Hall, Lin Dong read aloud, his voice soft as his eyes followed the ancient text. Azure Dragon Hall, one of the four symbols profound sect? As Lin Dong pondered, the azure light on the gate flickered again, revealing more ancient text. Azure Dragon Trial, a path of 9 deaths and 1 life. Enter at your own peril. Enter at your own peril. The repeated warnings, along with a faint red glow, carried an ominous and bloodthirsty energy. Anyone seeing such words would undoubtedly feel a chill run down their spine. Lin Dong took a deep breath. A trial, huh? He frowned slightly at the ancient text. He hadn't expected that even after fighting his way through to this bronze door, the inheritance still wouldn't be handed over easily. Instead, he had to pass this so-called Azure Dragon trial. Lin Dong glanced around. This strange space seemed to offer only one path forward. There was no way to retreat. He couldn't help but feel slightly exasperated. The one who designed this space had quite the twisted sense of humor, warning people to turn back while blocking all possible exits. The only way forward was through the gate, to face the Azure Dragon trial. So what was the point of the enter at your own peril warning? Cursing the designer of this space inwardly, Lin Dong steeled himself, lifted his foot, and strode toward the open gate. After all the hardships he'd faced to get here, he wasn't about to back down now. Trial or no trial, even if it were a true gauntlet of fire and death, Lin Dong would charge forward without hesitation. Because Lin Dong understood clearly, to stand out in this ancient battleground, where geniuses were as numerous as clouds, he had to rely on these ancient inheritances. While personal effort was essential, these ancient legacies could multiply one's efforts tenfold, or even 100-fold. He didn't have the luxury of time to seek out other treasures or acquire their inheritances, so now, this path was the only one he could follow. Azure Dragon Trial. I want to see just how deadly this 9 deaths, 1 life trial really is. Standing before the giant gate, Lin Dong's eyes flickered with hesitation, but he finally clenched his teeth and took a resolute step forward, no longer hesitating. As he stepped through the gate, the anticipated darkness did not come. Instead, Lin Dong's vision blurred for an instant, and then, he felt the world around him suddenly shift. A thunderous roar erupted in Lin Dong's ears as a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, its silver light illuminating his body. His usually calm eyes slowly filled with shock. Reflected in his pupils was an endless ocean of silver, stretching beyond sight. Above the ocean loomed thick clouds, dark and oppressive, filled with churning lightning. Massive bolts of lightning, like furious dragons, tore through the clouds, roaring down with violent force to strike the silver ocean below. The ocean churned under the bombardment of lightning, waves surging violently. However, within those waves, Lin Dong saw flickering arcs of lightning. The sea itself was composed entirely of condensed lightning. Seeing this scene, even Lin Dong, known for his calm, couldn't help but gasp in shock. He looked around frantically and realized that he was already standing in the middle of this sea of lightning. Beneath his feet was a single stone slab, barely large enough to stand on. Streams of lightning-infused liquid splashed against the slab, some of it spraying onto his legs, causing a sharp sting. This lightning liquid, it was real. The sharp pain caused Lin Dong's body to tremble violently, and his pupils contracted. Initially, he thought it might all be an illusion, but the pain made it clear that this impossible sea of lightning was real, and now he was in the middle of it. The realization made Lin Dong's scalp tingle. Only now did he fully grasp the terrifying nature of the Azure Dragon trial. This wasn't a mere sea of fire. This was something far worse, a sea of lightning. To create something like this, the person who set up this trial must have been unbelievably powerful. At that moment, Little Mink finally emerged from Lin Dong's body. Gazing out at the boundless sea of lightning, even its eyes flashed with surprise. "Am I supposed to cross this lightning sea?" Lin Dong muttered, looking up at the thick clouds. The massive bolts of lightning rained down like an unrelenting storm, covering the sky like a curtain of light. A truly breathtaking and terrifying sight. Heaven's fury was like a prison. From the bolts of lightning, Lin Dong could feel immense power. Even he wouldn't be able to withstand being struck by such lightning repeatedly. "It seems you'll have to find a way across. There's nothing much I can help with here," Little Mink said, spreading its paws helplessly. Lin Dong rolled his eyes at Little Mink's unhelpful suggestion, but then took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the sea of lightning. After a moment's hesitation, his fighting spirit surged. "I'll find out just how difficult this lightning sea is to cross." Laughing heartily, Lin Dong lightly tapped the stone beneath him and shot forward like a bolt of lightning himself. However, just as he left the safety of the stone slab, an irresistible force suddenly surged from all directions, forcibly pressing him down into the lightning sea. When Lin Dong's feet touched the surface of the lightning sea, he didn't sink, but the lightning-infused liquid rushed up around him. In an instant, searing pain shot up from his feet. It felt as though he had stepped into a boiling cauldron of oil. The intense pain jolted Lin Dong back to his senses. He immediately channeled his primordial energy, and a golden light surged beneath his skin. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was enveloped in a golden glow, activating his Nirvana golden body to defend against the pain. As Lin Dong activated his Nirvana golden body, the intense pain gradually lessened, though he could still feel traces of violent energy coursing through his feet and into his body. The energy numbed his meridians, giving him the sensation of being mildly electrocuted. Crackle! His hair stood on end, looking like the bristles of a porcupine, and a wisp of black smoke even escaped from his mouth. "Damn it!" Lin Dong cursed through gritted teeth, his face darkening. After a brief experiment, he discovered that flight was impossible over the lightning sea. That meant he would have to cross this seemingly endless expanse on foot. The violent energy in the lightning sea continuously eroded his body, and he had to constantly activate the Nirvana golden body to barely resist its effects. However, keeping the Nirvana golden body active consumed a vast amount of primordial energy, and even Lin Dong would find it difficult to maintain it for long stretches of time. "I crossed the dark domain of the devouring ancestral talisman. There's no way I'll be stopped by this lightning sea." Lin Dong clenched his jaw, his determination flaring up in response to the challenge. He concentrated his mind, and a thin layer of golden light surged beneath his skin, gathering around his feet. The golden glow spread out, deflecting the splashes of lightning-infused liquid. Thud. With his feet enveloped in the golden light, Lin Dong took a deep breath and stepped forward into the lightning sea. Crackle, sizzle. Each step on the sea sent shockwaves of pain up his legs, as if he were walking on a bed of sharp needles. After only a few dozen steps, beads of cold sweat began to appear on Lin Dong's forehead. Despite the searing pain that spread from his feet, Lin Dong's resolve only grew stronger, and his steps became more determined with each passing moment. Under the vast curtain of lightning, his solitary figure, shielded by the faint glow of gold, slowly moved further into the distance. Suddenly, a blinding bolt of lightning, like an enraged dragon, tore through the sky and slammed into the lightning sea, sending up a towering wave of lightning-infused liquid. The colossal wave, formed entirely of lightning energy, crashed down onto Lin Dong's thin, gold-wrapped figure. Boom! A dull sound rang out as Lin Dong's body was blasted backward several dozen meters. The violent liquid rolled off his body, making crackling sounds as it clashed with the golden light surrounding him. This solitary figure, braving the lightning sea, was none other than Lin Dong, attempting to pass the Azure Dragon trial. At this moment, his body was hunched from the force of the wave. His facial features were twisted in agony, clearly suffering from the excruciating pain. The lightning-infused liquid contained an overwhelmingly violent power. Even with the protection of the Nirvana golden body, it couldn't fully prevent the painful erosion from seeping into his body. It felt like countless steel needles were being driven into him, an unbearable torment that cut deep into his bones. Huff! Lin Dong exhaled heavily, releasing the tension from his clenched fists, then slowly straightened his bent body. He had experienced this several times already in the nearly half-day he had spent crossing the sea. The pain from the lightning-infused liquid was torturous, and without the Nirvana golden body, he suspected his body would have been completely consumed by the lightning, leaving nothing behind. Although it was agonizing, Lin Dong began to notice something peculiar with each wave of pain. Whenever the pain reached its peak, the violent energy seemed to produce a strange, faint energy. This energy was so weak that it dissipated almost as soon as it appeared, and had it not been for Lin Dong's sharp spiritual senses, he might have overlooked it entirely. This strange energy, born from the lightning-infused liquid, didn't enhance his primordial energy. However, Lin Dong could sense that his physical body was subtly being strengthened by this mysterious energy, bit by bit, without him even realizing it. As Lin Dong's body continued to strengthen, it seemed that his resistance to the corrosive lightning liquid was also gradually increasing. Although the pain remained intense, it was slightly more bearable than when he had first begun. If this strengthening process continued, it was possible that one day his body might become completely immune to the violent forces of this lightning sea. However, reaching that point would require enduring an unimaginable amount of pain. Even those who realized what was happening might not have the mental fortitude to persevere if they lacked strong willpower or sufficient ability. At this rate, to reach the point where I can ignore the lightning sea's erosion, Lin Dong wiped a streak of lightning liquid from his forehead and looked up at the endless expanse of the silver sea, frowning. By his calculations, strengthening his body to that level would take at least half a year. But clearly, Lin Dong didn't have that kind of time. In less than half a year, the 100 Dynasty War would commence, and he had to pass the Azure Dragon trial and obtain the inheritance from the Azure Dragon Hall before then. If you want to speed up the process, it's not impossible. Little Mink's voice suddenly echoed in Lin Dong's mind, interrupting his train of thought. HM? You have a way? Lin Dong asked, slightly surprised. There's indeed a type of energy in the lightning liquid that strengthens the body. When your body reaches its limit, this energy is automatically released. However, the energy you're absorbing now is only about 1/10 of what's available. If you can retain the other 9/10 of it, your strengthening process will naturally speed up, Little Mink explained casually. And how do I do that? Lin Dong wasn't overjoyed by the revelation. Instead, he lowered his gaze slightly, calmly asking. He knew that in this world, nothing came without a price. It's nothing much. Just that the pain your body endures will be 10 times more intense, Little Mink replied with a mischievous chuckle. 10 times, Lin Dong's eyelid twitched involuntarily. Even though he had mentally prepared himself, his body couldn't help but shudder at the thought. The pain he was experiencing now was already excruciating, and multiplying that by 10 was something few could withstand. It'll be hard to endure, but it seems to be the only way to speed things up. Of course, whether or not you go through with it is entirely up to you, Little Mink added. Do I even have a choice? Lin Dong replied with a bitter smile, straightening his posture. He looked off into the distance and said, I'll leave the task of retaining the energy to you. As for the pain, I'll endure it. Let's begin. Lin Dong clenched his fists, his gaze turning sharp as he stepped forward once more without hesitation. Crackle. As Lin Dong resumed walking, bolts of lightning once again surged up from the lightning sea, flowing through his feet and into his body. The familiar sharp pain quickly followed. All right, I'm starting. You'll have to endure it. Let me know if it becomes too much, Little Mink said seriously. As its voice faded, Lin Dong instantly felt the pain in his body magnify, almost as if it were exploding within him. His forward step froze just above the surface of the lightning sea, and his entire body began to tremble uncontrollably. Cold sweat poured from his forehead, dripping down his face in a steady stream. The pain, it was far more brutal than he had anticipated. Lin Dong's face twisted in agony, and he gasped for breath, struggling to stay upright. It wasn't until after what felt like an eternity that he finally began to feel the pain recede, leaving him utterly exhausted. Buzz. As the pain gradually subsided, the long-awaited strange energy washed over him like a spring rain. The energy flowed through his body, spreading to his limbs, muscles, and meridians. At that moment, Lin Dong's muscles, which had been nearly numbed by the pain, began to heat up and stir, as if they were boiling with newfound vitality. As the strange energy flowed through Lin Dong's body, the strength that had been drained by the earlier pain began to slowly return, and with it, there was a subtle yet noticeable increase in his physical power. It's working. Lin Dong's spirit lifted as he sensed his body gradually recovering. His eyes glimmered with excitement. He could feel that his body was steadily growing stronger under the refinement of this mysterious energy. At this rate, his physical form might soon be strong enough to withstand the second Nirvana tribulation. The Azure Dragon trial, though agonizing, was proving to be an incredible training ground. Let's keep going. With his strength slowly returning, Lin Dong took a deep breath. Time was running short, and he couldn't afford to linger. After a brief moment of recovery, he lifted his foot and continued his determined march forward. On the seemingly endless lightning sea, a figure wrapped in a faint golden glow moved forward, step by step. His pace was slow but resolute, unyielding like a mountain. The lightning sea stretched vast and endless. Lin Dong, standing within it, appeared as insignificant as an ant before the fury of heaven. Yet, he did not flinch or waver. He kept moving, step by step, without pause. Crossing the lightning sea clearly wasn't a task that could be completed in a day. Lin Dong had long since lost track of time. All he knew was to keep moving, one step at a time. No matter how vast the lightning sea, there had to be an end to it. Time passed quietly in the lightning sea. 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. During the first 3 days, Lin Dong endured unimaginable torment. The pain was so intense that, despite his resilience, he nearly faltered under the relentless agony. Fortunately, the human body has an amazing ability to adapt to even the most extreme pain. As Lin Dong's body gradually strengthened, the excruciating pain that had tormented him began to lessen, if only slightly. Each round of agony pushed his physical form to its limits, and though he felt as if he was on the brink of death, he persevered. Even Little Mink was surprised by Lin Dong's tenacity. After surviving the first 3 agonizing days, the journey became slightly more bearable. It wasn't that the pain had diminished, but Lin Dong's body had begun to adapt to the torment. By the 10th day, Lin Dong's body had developed some resistance to the violent forces of the lightning sea. The intense pain that had once racked his body was now significantly reduced. Despite this progress, Lin Dong still hadn't reached the end of the lightning sea. This unexpected result surprised Lin Dong, but it didn't alarm him. Since this was a trial, it had to have an endpoint. The supreme being who created this space surely wouldn't have designed it with no exit, just a toy with future challengers. Holding on to this thought, Lin Dong continued to trudge through the endless lightning sea for another 5 days. Boom! Silver lightning bolts continued to rain down endlessly from the dark clouds, striking the sea and sending massive waves of lightning liquid crashing upwards. Amidst the surging waves, a figure wrapped in golden light walked calmly forward. The towering waves crashed against him, but his body remained completely unmoved. Crackle! The lightning-infused liquid clung to his body, sparking with wild arcs of electricity. Yet, after half a month of relentless training in the lightning sea, this once unbearable pain no longer had any effect on his body. Lin Dong casually swept his hand across his body, brushing away the lightning liquid. After spending half a month traversing the lightning sea, his body had undergone an immense transformation. He had endured an unimaginable level of pain, but in exchange, his physical form had been greatly strengthened. Lin Dong gazed out at the vast, shimmering silver sea, his brow furrowing slightly. Based on his senses, the strengthening effect of the lightning sea had weakened significantly. The trial was no longer providing much benefit. "It should be over now," Lin Dong muttered as he looked over the sea. Buzz. The moment those words left his lips, the entire atmosphere of the world seemed to freeze. Then, the lightning sea began to churn violently, creating massive whirlpools. Lin Dong looked down at the surging sea beneath his feet, and his pupils contracted. From the depths of the lightning sea, he could feel something. Something was rising to the surface,